There is a fact: the watch industry does not advertise. And it explains why the majority of watches sold between $100 to $500 are a worse investment than leaving the money in your pocket. Most of those watches share the same movements, the same cases, and often the same factory floor. The only thing that changes is the logo on the dial and the price tag. By the end of this video, you will know which brands built their entire business on that gap, and which 3 watches quietly deliver what the expensive names promise. Daniel Wellington is one of the most recognizable watch brands in the world, and that recognition is the entire product. The watch itself is almost incidental. Here's what the clean dial and the lifestyle marketing conceal. Daniel Wellington does not manufacture watches. The brand licenses its name to a production pipeline that sources basic quartz movements, the kind that cost between $8 and $15 wholesale, and assembles them into thin cases with mineral glass, then sells the finished product for $180 to $300. The watchmaking pedigree behind a Daniel Wellington is zero. There is no in-house movement. There is no heritage workshop. There is a logo, a marketing budget, and a very effective Instagram strategy. The evidence is consistent, and it is not subtle. Enthusiast communities and independent reviewers consistently flag Daniel Wellington near the top of every watch-buying warning list published in 2025 and 2026. The movement inside a $220 Daniel Wellington is functionally identical to movements found in watches that retail for $25. The case construction, the mineral glass, and the water resistance rating at 3 atmospheres are entry-level specifications, the kind you find on watches that make no claim to luxury whatsoever. What you get on the wrist is undeniably clean. The minimalist dial is genuinely attractive, the leather strap sits well, and the overall aesthetic is coherent and considered. At $40, this would be a perfectly honest product. At $220, it is a photograph dressed as a timepiece. You are not buying a watch. You are buying the feed. The next brand took Daniel Wellington's playbook and weaponized it for a generation that grew up on YouTube ads. And it has been even more brazen about what it is selling. MVMT built one of the fastest-growing watch brands in history on a single insight: that most consumers under 35 make purchasing decisions based on aesthetic and social proof, not on what is inside the case. That insight made them hundreds of millions of dollars. It did not make them a watch company. Here is what the MVMT marketing machine conceals. MVMT watches use generic quartz movements sourced from large Chinese manufacturers, movements that wholesale for $10 to $20 and are available to any brand willing to place a minimum order. The cases, dials, and straps are sourced from the same OEM catalog suppliers used by dozens of other Instagram-first brands. A widely circulated analysis of MVMT's production model describes it plainly. The brand buys components in bulk from Alibaba-adjacent suppliers, applies its branding, and sells the assembled product at 10 to 50 times the component cost. The watch enthusiast community groups MVMT explicitly alongside Daniel Wellington and Invicta in every beginner warning list published in recent years. The numbers confirm this. MVMT was acquired by Movado Group in 2018 for up to $100 million, a transaction that was entirely a purchase of brand equity and social media audience, not of watchmaking capability or intellectual property. Movado, a brand with genuine Swiss movement credentials, bought MVMT because the marketing worked, not because the product deserved the price. Resale value on MVMT watches sits at effectively zero in the secondary market. Watch resale platforms do not meaningfully track MVMT because collector demand does not exist. On the wrist, MVMT delivers a bold, confident aesthetic, wide cases, strong dial contrast, and a visual presence that photographs extremely well. The build quality is adequate for casual wear. Nothing breaks immediately. Nothing about the wearing experience justifies the retail price relative to what the same money buys elsewhere. The watch knows what it costs to make. The price tag is hoping you do not. The next category is larger, older, and operated by some of the most recognized names in global fashion. And the business model is arguably even more cynical, because these brands have genuine heritage in other categories, and they are trading on it in a category where they have none. Armani, Michael Kors, Hugo Boss, Tommy Hilfiger, Diesel, Versace, Gucci, Calvin Klein. These names sit in watch display cabinets in department stores across the world, priced between $150 and $500, dressed in luxury positioning. Almost none of them make watches. Here is what the fashion house label conceals. The overwhelming majority of fashion brand watches are produced under licensing agreements with large watch manufacturing conglomerates, most notably Fossil Group, which holds or has held watch licenses for Armani Exchange, Michael Kors, Hugo Boss, Tommy Hilfiger, Diesel, Kate Spade, and others. Fossil Group designs, manufactures, distributes, and services these watches. The fashion house approves the aesthetic and receives a royalty. The watchmaking expertise, the movement sourcing, and the quality control sit entirely with the licensee, not with the brand whose name is on the dial. Independent reviewers at major watch publications have documented this licensing structure in detail, noting that consumers paying for a perceived Armani watchmaking heritage are paying for something that does not exist. The movements inside fashion house watches at the $150 to $300 tier are almost universally basic quartz, offering simple timekeeping, minimal water resistance, and no mechanical interest whatsoever. At the $300 to $500 tier, you occasionally find an ETA-based quartz or a licensed mechanical movement, the same movements available to brands at a fraction of the retail premium. Reddit threads dedicated to watch advice list fashion house brands among the first names beginners are warned away from, noting that the same money buys legitimate Swiss watchmaking from established manufacturers with real service networks. The watches themselves are often genuinely stylish. Armani dials are clean. Michael Kors cases are confidently proportioned. The aesthetic execution is professional and the build is adequate. None of that is the problem. The problem is that you are paying for a name that borrowed someone else's craft and charged you for the prestige of the introduction. What comes next is a brand that pioneered a different kind of deception, not licensed fashion, but invented retail theater so sophisticated that millions of buyers still have not noticed it. Invicta has mastered something no other watch brand has quite managed: the permanent discount. An Invicta Pro diver sits on a retail shelf or an Amazon listing with a manufacturer's suggested retail price of $345 and a sale price of $49. That sale has been running without interruption for years. Here's what Invicta's pricing theater conceals. The manufacturer's suggested retail price on an Invicta watch is, in the overwhelming consensus of independent reviewers and watch enthusiast communities, a number invented specifically to manufacture the illusion of a discount. It bears no relationship to what the watch ever sold for at full price, because the watch never sold at full price. The actual market value of an Invicta Pro diver, the price the secondary market will pay, sits at $30 to $50. That is not a heavily discounted luxury watch. That is a $40 watch with a fictional $345 sticker above it. A widely watched 2026 watch warning video identifies Invicta Pro Diver explicitly, citing misaligned bezels, inconsistent finishing, and quality control failures that appear even at retail. The business model is documented and straightforward. Invicta files inflated suggested retail prices, lists them as crossed-out original prices on Amazon and retail platforms, and creates the perception of saving $290 on a product that was never worth $290. Watch forums have tracked this practice consistently for over a decade. Resale values confirm it every time. On the wrist, the Pro Diver is a chunky, bold diver-style watch with a Seiko NH35 movement in higher-tier models. A genuinely reliable automatic movement that deserves a better home than the case it is sitting in. The lume is adequate, the bracelet is heavy and loud. The overall build sits at a level consistent with a market value of $40 to $60. You did not save $290. There were never $290 to save. The final brand to avoid is not a single name. It is an entire category, and it is the most dangerous one on this list. because it wears the language of authenticity while running the same playbook as everyone above it. Every few months, a new watch brand launches on Kickstarter, or through Instagram advertising with a story about independent craftsmen, Swiss-inspired design, and a revolutionary value proposition that the big brands do not want you to discover. Most of them are MVMT with a different origin story. Here is what the crowdfunding campaign and the founder interview conceal. The majority of Kickstarter and Instagram microbrand watches at the $100 to $400 price point are built on the same OEM case and movement catalog available to any brand with a minimum order budget. The same Miyota or Chinese quartz movement. The same 40mm cushion case available from a Guangzhou supplier. The same deployant clasp photographed on a marble surface. The independent studio is frequently a two-person branding operation with a Shopify store and a fulfillment contract. Reddit threads advising beginners on microbrand watches are explicit. Most Kickstarter watch launches are MVMT-style reskins, and the romantic founding story is itself a marketing asset, not a guarantee of quality or value. Watch enthusiast communities note that the few legitimate microbrands, Baltic being the most frequently cited exception, are distinguished precisely by their transparency about movement specs, case sourcing, and finishing standards. The evidence test is simple. Ask the brand what movement is inside the watch, where the case is manufactured, and what the water resistance is rated to under ISO standards. Legitimate microbrands answer immediately and in detail. Brands running a marketing operation answer in lifestyle language and pivot to the story. What these watches deliver varies enormously. Some are genuinely attractive and adequately built for casual wear. Others arrive with alignment issues and strap quality that contradicts the price. The range is wide because the category is defined by marketing ambition, not by consistent production standards. If the brand's most impressive asset is the Kickstarter video, the watch probably is not worth the pledge. That is every brand you should walk past. Now let us talk about where the money actually belongs. If this is landing differently than you expected, hit subscribe. Now let us get into the 3 watches that real enthusiasts recommend when no one is trying to sell them anything. Orient is one of the most consistently underrated watch brands on the planet. The reason most buyers overlook it is straightforward. It does not advertise that it is owned by Seiko Epson, and that it produces fully in-house mechanical movements at price points that embarrass the entire fashion watch category. Here is what the modest branding and the affordable price tag hide. Orient manufactures its own movements from the ground up, the caliber F6922 and the F4922 among others, in a fully integrated production facility. In-house movements at Orient's price tier are not the norm. They are, by any honest assessment of the market, extraordinary. The Orient Bambino, a dress watch with a clean dome dial and a genuine mechanical heart, retails consistently between $100 and $180 depending on variant. The Orient Mako and Ray dive watches are automatic, use in-house movements, offer 200 meters water resistance on select models, and have solid bracelet construction. They retail between $120 and $170. Watch enthusiast communities across Reddit, YouTube, and independent review platforms list the Bambino and Mako among the most recommended first mechanical watches available at any price, in any year. The wearing experience on an Orient Bambino is quietly impressive. The domed crystal catches light with the kind of vintage character that dress watches 3 times the price replicate deliberately. The movement winds smoothly, hacks, and handwinds, features that brands charging 5 times as much occasionally omit. Accuracy runs within acceptable automatic tolerances, and often better. Orient is what the fashion watch industry is pretending to be, and it costs less than a Daniel Wellington. The next hidden gem comes from a country not traditionally associated with watchmaking. It started on Kickstarter, and it is one of the few brands that category has ever produced that the watch community actually respects. Baltic is a French microbrand that launched in 2017 through crowdfunding, and it is the exception that proves every rule about Kickstarter watches. The community that warns beginners away from crowdfunded watch brands names Baltic in the same breath. as the one they explicitly exempt. Here is what Baltic's modest profile and its accessible pricing hide. Baltic is transparent about every specification in a way that brands with 10 times the marketing budget are not. The movement supplier, the case manufacturer, the finishing standards, the lug width, all documented, all publicly available, all verifiable. The HMS and Aquascaffi models use proven Swiss and Japanese movements, are finished with brushed and polished surfaces that show genuine attention to detail, and are designed with a vintage-inspired coherence that independent reviewers have praised consistently since the brand's first collection. Multiple watch review platforms covering Baltic's output describe the finishing quality as punching well above the $250 to $400 price point. Reddit threads that flag microbrands for beginners to avoid specifically carve out Baltic as a brand that, in their words, has done right by its customers. On the wrist, a Baltic HMS carries a presence that the price tag does not prepare you for. The case proportions are deliberately vintage, compact, comfortable, with a dial layout that references mid-century French and Swiss dress watches. The finishing is considered rather than flashy. The movement keeps time accurately, and the overall package communicates craft rather than marketing. Baltic proves that the microbrand category is not a broken concept. It proves that most brands in it are simply not trying hard enough. The final hidden gem is the most established name on this list, and the most overlooked by buyers who assume that Swiss heritage at a fair price no longer exists. Tissot and Hamilton are two of the most honest value propositions in Swiss watchmaking. The watch industry's obsession with aspirational luxury has spent decades talking past them, while buyers hand money to fashion houses for inferior products. Here is what the absence of hype and the modest shelf positioning hide. Both Tissot and Hamilton are members of the Swatch Group, the largest watch manufacturer in the world, which means their movements, quality control, and service infrastructure sit on the same foundation that supports Omega and Longines. Tissot's in-house movements and ETA-based calibers are serviced by a global network with documented parts availability stretching decades forward. The Hamilton Khaki Field Mechanical, a hand-wound watch with a genuinely robust ETA 6498 movement, retails between $450 and $550. The Tissot PRX, which won widespread critical praise on its relaunch and sells consistently between $350 and $450, offers an integrated bracelet design that the watch press compared favorably to references costing 4 to 6 times as much from Swiss brands operating in the prestige tier. Enthusiast communities name Tissot and Hamilton consistently in discussions about the best Swiss watches under $500, noting that the service network, the movement quality, and the resale trajectory all outperform fashion house watches at comparable or higher prices. On the wrist, a Hamilton Khaki Field or a Tissot PRX delivers what the fashion house watches approximate from a distance. Genuine Swiss heritage, a movement worth caring about, and a dial that reads as serious without requiring a financial justification to wear it. The build quality holds across years. The resale market values them. The watch community respects them. Tissot and Hamilton are where the money goes when the marketing finally stops working on you. The brands that win on logo and lifestyle almost always lose on movement, value, and longevity. The brands that win on craft and honesty almost always lose on marketing, and that is exactly why they remain available at those prices. That window does not stay open indefinitely. The dial does not lie. Buy what is inside it. Subscribe for more.